Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mike Richlow Online. Today, I'm not sure what I should call it. I think I'm going to call it The Wonderful Lost World of Sherry. That's more or less what the episode's going to be about. Sherry is not just what Grandma used to drink. You need to go out and find some good sherry and taste it and see what you think. I think it'll knock your socks off. What makes sherry unique is it's still a wine, but it's a fortified wine. Now what fortification means is either during or after fermentation, they've added brandy to the still wine. When I say during or after, that's how they make port. Port, they add brandy to the port to kill off the fermentation, leaving residual, like I said, partway through fermentation, leaving residual unfermented sugar behind, which is what gives port its unique hint of sweetness. Now, we're not talking about port today, we're talking about sherry. Sherry, what they do is they let the wine go completely dry, like you're making normal wine. Then they fortify it with brandy, or mix brandy into it. And there's other methods they use as well to sweeten it, which brings me to the point that there's lots of different types of sherries. A few of the main ones that I'll just quickly highlight for you. There's Fino sherry, which is probably the most light and the most delicate of the sherries. Manzanilla, or Manzanilla. It's a dry Fino sherry, quite dry, but of a higher quality than just straight Fino. Now there's a lot more depth and detail to it than that, but that's where I'm going to stop. There's the Amontillado. It's a nuttier, fuller sherry. Let's say it's probably got a little bit richer, heavier body. I would say 17 to 18% alcohol. Which helps it keep longer as well too. Originally, the reason they started fortifying wines back in history was for shipping purposes. When you ship still wine, in the ships, the heat and the transport and everything and all the shaking and things like that would make the wine spoil over transport. So they decided, let's throw some brandy in it. And then on the other end, we'll see what happens. They discovered they really liked the way it tasted. So they left it at that and started improving upon it. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. After Amontillado, it's a longer word. I have it written down under the camera just so I can pronounce it for you. Amontillado. There's the next one. It's called Oloroso. It's a little bit darker, a little bit higher alcohol content. It's going to start to get a little bit sweeter, and the alcohol content was going to say it's between 18 and 20%, a little bit higher. The last type of sherry that I'll highlight is cream sherry. Now, cream sherry is usually served as a dessert sherry. It's a sweeter sherry, and they've got all kinds of methods for sweetening sherry. It's really interesting to read into. Now, like port from Portugal, Champagne from Champagne, sherry has to be from Spain, from the small growing area of Jerez. It's spelled J-E-R-E-Z, Jerez, Jerez. And that classifies it as sherry. Now they've got all kinds of rules and regulations in place to make that. Sherry as well is made in the Solera system. Look up the Solera system. I'm not going to go into huge detail about it, but it's an aging method in stacked oak barrels. And by aging in this, they integrate different vintages of the sherries, allowing them to just grow complexities on each other, absorb from the oak, and just age really neatly and interestingly. I'd love to go into Solera system, but that would take up 2 episodes, so we'll leave it at that. I'm going to go ahead and taste these, and we'll see what we think. Oh, here's the other thing I love about sherry. The alcohol content's high enough to keep it, not like a bottle of wine that's going to spoil on you once it's open. That's why the corks come removable like this. Throw it back into your cellar or your storage area. Keep it upright, otherwise it'll spill. But it'll last you several months. So the first one I've got is by William and Humbert. It's their dry sack. It's an Oloroso sherry. Both the sherries I'm trying are an Oloroso sherry. This is a slightly drier Oloroso. Let's see what happens with it. Let's just see the label here. And this one's gotten a fair amount of talk lately as well. Here's the other thing I didn't mention about sherry. Before I go ahead and taste, I'm sorry. Sherry has exceptional value right now. Because it's kind of gotten lost over time, you can get really nice sherries for $15, $20 a bottle. Whereas ports, you can be paying up to $300, $400 for an exceptional vintage port. Non-vintage port, they're cheaper. But sherries, you can get high quality sherries for relatively decent price points, and I think it's something we really need to take advantage of. And they can replace your dessert wines, things like that. They're really nice. As well, sherries can be enjoyed as an appetizer, or another word they like to use is aperitif. Something to get your taste buds really going and craving the meal. Alright, let's get into this one. And I'm doing the stemless glass today. I like stemless glass. I think they're really cool, and especially for a wine like sherry or even a big red, it allows your hands to keep it warmer, bring it to room temperature if it's slightly chilled, and they just look really nifty. So on the nose right away, it's a fairly classic sherry nose. You get a really neat nuttiness, almost kind of like an almond or almond paste. There's a little bit of fruit showing through. I'd like to call it dried prunes or fig. Maybe a little bit of, how can you say it? In my mind, sweetened bark. Something along those lines, if that makes sense to you. And there's a nice like brown sugar plate. Brown sugar and spice, maybe like nutmeg or something like that. Okay, now on the palate, there's a rich sense of like a coffee caramel, something along those lines, with a nice little bit of a wooded, oaked aspect to it, but kind of a vanilla play, with a little bit of a savory spice. Let's say like, you know when you first stick an almond in your mouth and it's got a little bit of a saltiness to the brown outside of it? That's what I'm getting a lot of on this. Really nice, very, very pleasant. Again, gets your taste buds going, makes you want food. Also, sherry is just a great thing to just have and sip. Also, because of the decent alcohol content on it, this one's 19.5. It has a nice warming effect. This is really clean, balanced on my palate. It's almost creamy and soft. It just goes down really nice. It has nice length as well. You can feel the alcohol ever so slightly in the back end, but still it's quite nice. I mean, you're going to feel the alcohol slightly because it is higher alcohol. The brandy you'll be tasting. This one, for a sherry, I would say I would give it, let's say an 88 point sherry. I think this is about a $15 bottle. Really nice price point, 88 points. This bottle I would enjoy for a long time, enjoy it with friends as an aperitif. Can't complain about that one. Okay, it's a shame dumping this one out, but there's lots in the bottle. Next one we've got is the Lustau Dry Oloroso. Again, I'm doing both Olorosos today. These guys, see if there's anything interesting on the back. Solaris system. Serve it at a cool room temperature. This one I've seen a lot lately. It's been getting really nice reviews as well. This one's slightly more expensive. I think this one's about $20. Again, the cork on the top, it'll age quite well. It'll keep quite well in your cupboard. Just gonna give my glass a rinse here. Now this one has a really interesting color to it when I poured it. It's a deep, more brownish color. I really like that. I find that really interesting. The other one was a lot lighter than this one. Almost kind of like we're in Canada, let's say a maple syrup color. I like that. Okay. This one's got an interesting nose. Similar nose, you get the same nuttiness. With that hint of spice, again, you get some of that brown sugar, but on the nose, this one, it's got definitely a sweeter nose. And as opposed to almonds or something like I was getting off that one, this I would say almost more like walnut, something like that. Yeah, like creamed walnut, if you could go that direction, with a hint of, again, savory spice, which I think is kind of a signature thing of sherry. There's again some nice fruit showing through, again dried fruit. And this one, I really like the nose. The palate on this one is less creamy than that one, less smooth, a little bit more biting. But this one's got an interesting kind of tart acidity to it. Almost like a really, really overripe orange, where it's starting to turn, and the flavors are starting to get too much, almost to that spoiled place, but not quite there. It's very interesting on the palate. The alcohol's a little warm, not bad at all. And this one's got a neat wooded aspect to it. Again, kind of a barky play. I like that, but I think this one was integrated better. And I think it carries itself better. It's more complete, more balanced and smooth. This one's got a fancier looking bottle, but it doesn't always say anything. That's another thing to stick to. When you're looking for wine, don't always go off the label. Marketing is a huge play in wine and all that kind of stuff, and it can really steer you in the wrong direction. Again, I really like this one. It's quite dry. This is much more, let's say, salted, almost like salted peanut or salted pistachio. I would go that direction for it. It's quite savory. It's got a slight bitter aspect to it. This one I gave an 88. I think I would probably give this one about let's say an 86.5 or an 87. A different sherry, much drier. This one just seemed more balanced. And this one's a little bit biting, but not quite as clean on the palate. Still quite nice, I like it. But we're gonna give this one, let's just say an 87 point sherry. Okay, I hope you've learned a little bit about sherry. I hope you just run out and buy a bottle of sherry. You need to try it. I mean, again, we're in Canada. Ice wine here is very popular, but really expensive. Sweet wines from around the world, Sauternes, Tokai, things like that, quite expensive. Sherries, especially if you try out a cream sherry or something like that, can make a really nice, again, aperitif or dessert. Same thing with sweet wines. Sauternes, again, things like along those directions. Ice wines. A lot of people play them with dessert. I think they make great appetizers as well. It's a really good way to get your guests excited, get their flavors, get their taste buds going, get their mouths watering, ready for a good evening and a good meal. Thanks for coming out. I'd really love it if you keep commenting below. I'm having so much fun doing this, and we'll see you next time.